So today we've got Anthony Adams with us, co-founder of Engage Management Services. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So kicking off, you've got 15 years experience in the self-storage industry, so I've been told. So how did you get into self-storage?
Well, to be honest, and I'm sure loads of people say this, it wasn't by design. I didn't sort of plan to. I started my working career in a marketing agency. And it just so happened that a friend of mine was working for a storage company and they needed someone in to sort of come on board as a marketing assistant. From then on, that's all history. I worked with a small operator with 4 sites, which was going through some changes. They were taking on the management contract of a group that had been acquired called Armadillo, which people will probably recognize now, which is now managed by Big Yellow. And since then, we've gone through various iterations until that business changed and the management was being moved to another company, which gave me and my business partner, Mark, an opportunity to look at what we were doing. Because by this point, we were looking after a group of 14 stores and then we were going back down to 4. It was a case of we're used to running more. So what can we do? So we looked over to the US market. We went out there for one of the conferences, spoke to various management companies out there. That was the beginning of the idea of setting up a third-party management service in the UK. The likes of the big companies, Big Yellow, Safe Store, Lock and Store, they all did some third-party management, but very much under their own brands.
Like a market franchisee then?
Yeah. There's plenty of people who want to get into the sector and but don't really know what to do and don't know where to start. So we sort of positioned ourselves as a advice sort of position to help people, but equally provide them with a full third-party management platform. And at the time, it was just Mark and myself managing these stores, which meant that we all wore multiple different hats. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to now where we're managing a lot more and we've built our team loads so that we effectively can provide a single site owner with what feels like a multi-site back end. So we cover every aspect of the business from operations, marketing, HR, all the way through to sort of the disposal or sale of a building.
So very briefly, in a nutshell, what does Engage do and what services do you offer?
It's a good question because for a while I've always struggled about how to pitch it. The simplest way to explain what Engage does is we are a third-party management platform, which gives independent and smaller operators the equivalent back end of a larger operator. So we sort of benefit from economies of scale. And as our team, we have a combined experience of 90 years. We've got a marketing department that's 3 people. We've got operations, we've got IT, we have area managers who will monitor all the sites. And a lot of that is normally what you get when you have 10, 15, 20 sites. We can effectively provide that to people who are starting out for the first time or have 1 or 2 and just want to become more efficient with their operations and arguably just perform better and become more profitable.
So typically, who is your customer who comes to you? Are they normally they've got 1 or 2 sites, or do you get more people who are just starting out?
It's mainly people starting out.
So they've got the land, they want to get into self-storage.
Or even before that, there's probably 2 groups that it really sits in. You have a high net worth individual who has a property that was, good example, we might help them set up and manage a store down in Colchester. They had a big warehouse that was being rented out to a tenant. They were coming to the end of their lease and the owner had read in the news or seen it around that, storage is a viable use for like vacant property. He came to us. We did a feasibility study. We did a lot of market research in the area and effectively gave them a blueprint being like, this is what you can do. And at that point, they could just take that information and go and do it themselves. But more often than not, they'll then opt to use us to run it for them because people who come to storage, most people haven't got a clue really what to do it. And as simple as the business is, it can be actually quite operational.
And they hurt themselves. They have no idea there's actually systems out there that can help them.
Yeah.
And they end up just running off spreadsheets. And it's amazing how many times we get people over spreadsheets, but you've come along and just take it off hands really.
Yeah. And the idea is like, we can either give you like a turnkey solution, which is, and this is whether it's indoor, outdoor, whatever, we can look at it and go, right, this is what you want to do, recommend services, suppliers, etc., and let them do it themselves, which, to be fair, quite a lot of people want to do. They like the idea of being operational. But then talking back to that second group of people, it's the people who are sort of investor-led, where they just have the money. They don't want to get anywhere near it. They've just seen the returns that are possible out of storage. So they'll come to us and go, right, here's the money. I think we've got some sites, or can you help us find some sites? We'll go out, find them, set them up, run them, and they'll just sit back and take the profit.
Nice. So how many operators have you got at the moment under your umbrella?
We've got 8 different brands and 15 different sites. You know, we set up our business in 2009, and back then, container self-storage was not at the level it is now, like especially since COVID and the growth of storage there, and especially in the container sector, there's just been this massive improvement in the professional way container operators run their businesses. It's no longer on a dodgy industrial estate with no cameras, no fences. People care. People put effort in. We were talking earlier, you were saying about Pink Self-Storage, and Jamie, who's part of the YSN on the board there with Blue Self-Storage. It's amazing the way people like approach it now to the same level as indoor.
It's methodical. It really is. They're not just still boxes anymore. I mean, we've got a customer called Clear Self-Storage, and they put heating in there, lighting, electrics. We've got some people who actually split the 20 foots and have like a bit of a workshop or a work area at the back of the container and storage at the front. There's another customer we've got who's got 20 foots below, then he's put like 10 foots on top. So it's like an office upstairs with storage downstairs. So it's not just a box anymore.
No, you look at the likes of Box Park in Shoreditch, like as simple as, a storage container is, there is a lot you can do with it. And I think the beauty is, whilst people set up their storage sites, is they might get to a point where they go, I think I've filled the storage demand, but then if you can bring other uses in, they're so versatile.
Yeah.
That you can kind of turn the site into whatever you want it to be.
Well, different things to bring more people to the site. Yeah. We had Len on from Scott's Storage, and he's got a car wash there now. I thought that was such a good idea on a car wash on a self-store site, because everyone, so many people like now like to get the car washed, but then that's just constant traffic coming through. And you could put some signs up as you're giving them an air freshener, just give them a week off for each free storage. Yeah, exactly. It's just, there's more things you can do now on these sites to attract more people and a bit more awareness.
The problem is, like, not everyone can have a prime A-grade location. Like, everyone wants to be on a main road, incredible visibility, but that's more expensive. So what you can do, if you've got a secondary location, but you can generate traffic by other means, that just helps build the awareness. We've got a mixture of like high profile, low profile, and you have to work harder on the low profile one, but fundamentally it doesn't mean it won't work.
Yeah. Back in the day, you probably would say location is absolutely everything. But I think there's so many things you can do now to bring people to your site. It's not everything. You just got to make it work a little bit harder. Then you're spending less money on the land or the upkeep, etc. Yeah, exactly. So there's pros and cons to both, but land isn't always everything, is it?
No.
Just go back to your second point of people. So you've got these people they've got the capital, they've seen self-storage, the returns, but you said you can help them find land. Do you want to walk us through what it's like procuring land, gaining planning permission? What's the process like? If I'm coming to you with a pot of money, set me up a self-store site, how does it look?
The hardest thing is finding sites. And like, don't get me wrong, like we don't pride ourselves on being site finders, but we build relationships with agents, etc. More recently, we've actually brought someone into our team whose job is solely on the site finding side, finding properties that can be readily converted or finding sort of bits of land. Once you've found the site, obviously there's the whole planning aspect, which again, we tend to bring in expertise for that, because it can be so variable. Like, we've worked on projects where we've been stuck in planning for over a year because we're trying to build a 6-story property in West London, versus others where you've found a bit of land and you can just write in a simple submission to the council and they'll just greenlight it without thinking about it. The biggest problem I find when dealing with planning and trying to get councils on board is it's a bit of education. In a lot of places where storage is new, they just assume you're going to be tipping up with articulated lorries all the time. So you actually just go and have a conversation and go, well, actually, it's more of a retail product, really. Yes, it can look commercial, but the majority of the stuff that's turning up is like cars, Luton vans, transits. Yeah. And that alleviates a lot of their concerns in terms of traffic.
Yeah.
And again, it balances the demand where it comes to like zoning. Like, they might have an area that is designated specifically for retail, rather than trying to transfer retail into storage can often be problematic, because that's seen as a reduction in employment and it's a loss of a service. But whereas we don't have to staff them heavily, they're often sort of opportunities for people to launch businesses and therefore create employment sort of through us, if not directly by us.
No, that sounds really good. Going back to the operation of it, do you offer anyone any guidance on pricing at all? obviously pricing is so dependent on the location, isn't it? And indoor versus outdoor, etc. But if you look at maybe outdoor to start with, where would you start with offering guidance on pricing?
I think I mentioned earlier about doing feasibility studies and looking at the market. If you're going into a market where there are already operators out there, my recommendation will always be look at what the market looks like. If you've got any idea of how that prices might have moved over the last 12 months, that's great because you can see which way they're going. A lot of the time, it depends on what someone wants. Like, is it a case of, I just want to fill it quickly and make sure that it then creates a good revenue? You can maybe go in and sit slightly below market value and go, I just want to make sure that I've got a constant influx. Quite often it's perfectly okay to then sit slightly above the market value because you want to be the premium provider. And often if you're going at that end, you're probably investing a bit more in terms of the quality of the containers, the security, your CCTV infrastructure, maybe having additional services on site. There's a storage company near me called Beyond Storage they're a container site, but they equally have a sort of canteen breakout area made out of a couple of containers. Now, you don't have to go that route, but by doing that, you can then price yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
And then after that, once you've got there and you're filling up and you get to a mature occupancy, let's say, then it becomes buzzword at the moment is revenue management. We're in a tough year for the storage industry, I'd say, compared to the last few. Compared to pre-COVID, it's sort of a normal year, but we've all been used to this sort of COVID bump.
Yeah.
So people are definitely much more aware of actually making sure they're managing their revenue through existing customer rate increases rather than just relying on new stuff coming in all the time.
So during a consultation, is there any common questions or concerns anyone raises before they get into it?
I think if you take someone who's already an operator, they want to make sure that they're like meeting best practice, like checking there with like meeting the Self-Storage Association guidelines, but equally looking to go, right, how can I be more efficient? How can I be making the best use of my marketing spend? Because I think a lot of the time people can get busy with their day-to-day that they don't look for, I hate to coin a sort of cycling / Formula One term, but like marginal gains. But it matters as an industry matures and as more operators sort of come in, people have got to start looking for those little things that they can do.
So that ties quite nicely. My next question is the customer journey. Have you found over the years an optimum journey in terms of self-storage, onboarding a new customer or?
Onboarding in to engage a client, it's all about relationships. We'll get inquiries in, we'll have a conversation. It can take 6 months, it could take 4 years. Our whole thing about it is just making sure that they get comfortable with us and we can provide them with the service they need and evidencing that we know what we're doing, which fortunately now we've got a track record of. But if we look at it from a storage operator's perspective, that customer journey can vary location to location. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all approach. I think there's a framework. It's about getting the inquiry in the door, first and foremost. Crystal Land did a really interesting talk about looking at your marketing spend and how awareness of self-storage in the UK is like 55% of people know about what storage is, 45% don't. So it's like if you focus everything on Google and search-based stuff, you're only addressing that 55%. You've then got another almost half who have no idea what storage is, but there'll be people in there who need it. So it's making sure that you're addressing them as well. So making sure you get a good mix of getting those customers in. And then the customer journey in terms of, say, the follow-up process or the inquiry process. I know there's two schools of thought: have your prices visible and don't have your prices visible. It's really interesting because I know Gavin's a big advocate for visibility.
Yep.
Dean Booty's definitely the other side, being like put up a wall. I don't think it's a one size fits all. You only have to look at the major operators. SureGuard, for example, they have their prices. Big Yellow and SafeStore don't. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think if you're in a market where you are one of very few or maybe the only operator, you can put your price online because it doesn't really matter because you're not being benchmarked too much. However, where we've tried it, where you're in a competitive market, if you give your prices out and people look at them and they go, okay, they're fair, they're still going to go and get inquiries from the others. And the others, if they're decent operators, will pick up the phone and they will try and convert you. Whereas you don't get to be part of that conversation. So in that instance where we tried it, yes, lots more people looked at the prices, but that didn't translate into more bookings. It's not a one side or the other. It's all down to A, how you want to run your business, and B, sort of what the market gives. Because I know the other argument Gavin has is that if you've got your price online, you're not wasting people's time and energy calling them back, not getting through, leaving voicemails. The time will come that prices will all be online.
Yeah.
Because again, look to the US, there's a market that's 10, 20 years ahead of us. And that's just the way it is there.
Yeah.
But equally, that's because people understand what storage is. Most customers in the UK who come into storage have never used it before. So they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. And they want reassurance as to, the companies are trustworthy. They want reassurance that they're not picking the wrong space. And so being able to have a conversation definitely helps with that.
I think my opinion on it is, I think a lot of people in today's world will judge other products and services like how they interact with companies they buy from all the time. And I want to use Amazon as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to Amazon, I'm in the mode now where I want to go online, I want to view the product, I want to buy it now. If I'm looking for a storage unit, I want to go to the website, I want to see the price. If I like what I see, I want to buy now. If I can't book now, I've got to leave an inquiry. I might get a call back a few hours later. I'm not in that mode. I'm not in that buying mode. I could have switched off. I could have done something else. I might be busy. I might answer the phone. I'm out in the middle of something. Put the phone down. For me, put your prices on there, and you can book now. You're going to capture more customers. I mean, it's all about how you show the product online. Is your website good? Are you showing the right information? Are you showing how much can I fit in a 20-foot container? Are your images good? Is your information good? Are your USPs there? Have you got a good hook? Have you got 50% off your first month, etc.? Your discounts. For me, if I'm coming to a site looking for something, I want to check it out and do it now. And I think for me, having prices there and be able to book online I think you're going to win more by doing that, in my opinion.
I think it's equally important to note that just because you have an inquiry form, that doesn't mean you can't book online, because you can go through the process, put your information, get the price, and you'll still have the journey there. Mm-hmm. So I think you can still get through that process. Don't get me wrong, we do it because we know we will get more customers that way, because we've tested it. It's a fact. And I get it from a customer angle. If you looked at it from the outside being like, no, I just want to look at the price. I don't want someone to ring me. But that's equally from when you're in that buying mode and you know what you want. I think the Amazon versus storage analogy is Amazon, you're right. You know what you want and then you want to buy it. A lot of the time people are looking at storage in advance. So therefore it's a longer decision process most of the time. I was saying earlier, I think we will get to the place where everything's on there, but I think all operators need to lift their game in terms of putting more value into their websites, into actually selling the product better. I don't want to ruffle feathers, but the majority of storage operators, and I'm mainly looking at indoor, right? And I go onto their website. For some reason, the first image I see is the outside of the building. And I think it's nice to know the building looks good, but that isn't really, in my mind, as if I took my customer perspective, I don't think that's all that important. I don't really care what the building looks like. It comes down to the trust. It's the security. It's the the staffing. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're a service, not a complete commodity.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get to the angle with a lot of the stuff we do is actually try and bring personality into it more and actually go sell the outcome of what storage can do. There's a fantastic operator in the US called StoreQuest, and their whole brand is about what storage can give you. The whole ethos was completely different to it just removed any chance of it being a commodity. They've got two customers in. One's a famous surfer that I can't remember, and the other one is Tony Hawk, for anyone in the 90s who remembers the PlayStation games. And they decked out rooms to suit them and what it gave them, and then they became an ambassador. And I think there's so much value in showing what it can do. Mm-hmm. It's the same, you look at hotels. At the end of the day, it's a room with a bed, but there's a huge swathe of different personalities, values. And I think as our industry matures, that's going to play more of a part. What you're offering actually includes, rather than just being in the right location at the right price. There's going to be all sorts of other bits and pieces that are going to actually start playing a part.
So going back to what you said about the outside of the image on the website, I think what a lot of people fall into is the stock photos of there's just some generic person carrying boxes in the fact. I feel like it's borderline insulting to the customer. Just invest in a bit of photography. I think it makes such a difference if you can show off your site, whether it's indoor or outdoor. Just invest in that good photography, a bit of video. It shows you really care about your site, your business, not just grabbing some stock images.
A lot of the time you get, people, they're ready to invest in the physical, and we have it. The number of websites I have been on because I will organise the photo shoot and I'll go there and I'll be the stooge carrying boxes or whatever. Those less tangible things people do seem to try and avoid spending where possible. I've seen it, be it video, be it good photos, be it just websites in general. People go, I want to spend all the money on the physical asset. They then don't necessarily commit as much thought and effort into a website. I think that's changed in the grand scheme of things now. Websites are obviously vital. I totally agree. Like, stock photos is daft. And equally, people not necessarily showing anything. A company will come up and you'll go into their website and you go, they don't even appear to have a premises. They don't have anything, and there's not a single real thing on there. And you go, I mean, that's definitely not helping any customer.
Yeah.
In the modern day of online fraud, I mean, I don't think we're a sector that is being hit by this, but you could end up in a way that you are getting people to enter card details for services that they think they're getting, but they're not. And again, I think that comes back round as to why it's important to make sure following best practices. As a self-storage operator, being a member of the Self-Storage Association, I think there's valuable accreditation in there. And then there's all sorts of other schemes that you can sign up to. The Buy with Confidence scheme from Trading Standards or Tickbox, or ISO accreditation, just to give people confidence that what they're seeing is actually what they're going to get.
Yeah. A lot of time, self-storage is someone else's side business. They've got other things going on and stuff, but it still needs to give it some attention so it looks credible.
Yeah.
Against your competition, you need to go to town with your photography, and you join up to the SSA and stuff. It looks like you actually care about the business, not just some random boxes on the ground and cash in hand or something, however it was back in the day.
I think it's valuable what you're saying about how it can often be something that's done on the side that then becomes big. And I think, from farming, it's a prime example of how that can happen, whereby it's like, I'm just going to use this land, do it. And at the beginning, fine, you can get away with it. You've got like 10 or 20 containers and it's not really well known. But as soon as it starts building up, you want to make sure that it starts working for itself. And you've got to commit some resource and put some effort into it. It can't just be a case of, generating the rent and not worrying about it. And equally, the more resource you put into it and the effort you make, the higher the price you can command, and therefore making it more profitable. And then, if you ever came to wanting to sell the business, you want to make sure you've got that, that bed of quality that makes it attractive for someone else.
Yeah, definitely. So we touched on a bit of advertising, marketing and stuff. Have you found in your experience, does online or offline work better, or a mix of both?
Again, I think this can vary so much in different places. I think I heard on a previous podcast you had where someone had said they'd done a leaflet drop and it was incredibly successful.
Yeah.
I've had experiences of the same and others were not. I think fundamentally, you're going to put most of your eggs in the one basket that is the internet. I don't want to just say Google, because I was mentioning earlier about Yellow Pages. I feel like we've come full circle and we're doing the same thing, but everything's going into Google. Google can often be chucked in as like one thing. I'm like, hold on, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Google, there's 3 bits. You've got your paid listings, you've got your sort of organic stuff that's geared by SEO, and then there's Google Places or Google My Business, it used to be known. I'd say that for me is like a gem that most people still aren't exploiting, because that is actually free. You pay for your SEO, you pay for your ads. Google Places, you can manage and make it perform really well yourself. You don't need to be an expert in it. Going back to your actual question about like what a marketing plan might look like, I think you need a hybrid of physical and online, without a doubt. And then equally some community stuff, just more of that's a sort of a long-term societal benefit style thing. But we typically would put sort of 75% of the effort or funds into online, which again, predominantly within there, you'll probably find 75% of which is going into Google, and then the rest will go into social media stuff, SEO, content creation, etc. Videos, all that you can do. And again, the beauty of the modern day is filming a video used to cost masses, whereas now you can do it all on a phone. Yes, people might think it doesn't look as professional, but I think modern society, people are quite happy with that. People are used to watching video in a portrait mode on Instagram or whatever. People have got so accustomed to that actually if you film stuff in landscape, sort of, it's not ideal for the modern consumption. So that covers off online. And then local, if you've got a good location and you've got decent visibility, like a lot of your local marketing is going to be invested in terms of signage, because you want to make sure that as soon as anyone passes, they know who you are and they know what you do. If you're not blessed with that location, then you've got to work harder. You're not getting visibility from people passing. So it's whether investing in billboards can work. There's a great company in New York called Manhattan Mini Storage, and they've always been quite tongue-in-cheek, pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable on a billboard, but it's built them a reputation and it's built their brand. And that's what I think is the big shift now, is like, you've got to start thinking about branding. This came up at the European Storage Conference in Portugal last year and got mentioned again this year. If all you focus on is the ROI-driven marketing, you risk it becoming a pricing game. And all you're doing is trying to make sure that you've got the best price and the best thing, where actually, if you start putting an effort into branding and more of a long-term marketing strategy, that can actually start building that underlying brand awareness that means that when people need storage, they don't have to go to Google. I mean, they still will, but if you're already in their mind because you've done something creative locally, that can, put you almost at the top of the tree when it comes to the company they might want to pick.
It's called sales activation. So if you spend money on Google and then you get a sale, that's called sales activation. But then over time, brand building will outperform anything you can do on Google and throw money at it. So if you can invest in your brand and the sales activation in tandem, partnerships work better. If there's balance, you'll eventually be able to turn down any and that Google. If you really invest in your brand in the local area, because it's such a local area thing, eventually you'll be able to just turn off Google because your brand is bringing enough people straight to you. So it's really important to invest in the brand as well.
It's a hard sell though, because you're like, hold on, I'm spending money, but I'm not seeing an instant return. You go, yes, but it's trying to get the mentality away from it being an expense to being an investment. Yeah,
you just need to go online and spend 5 minutes, and anyone would be able to see. Yes, building the brand is so important.
It goes to the less visible side of brand, and it creates a sort of company ethos almost, or values, that thereby people understand what you are just by looking at you. It's not necessarily required right here, right now in the storage industry, but as more people are there, you're going to have to, because at the end of the day, whether it's container sites or indoor storage, you're selling space that people want to do stuff with. That, it doesn't matter how you wrap it up, that is a very simple product. And so you've got to find ways to make it sound different. And if everyone was doing exactly the same thing, it would only ever become price. And that's the last thing that any business owner wants.
Like anything though, people buy brands, not products. A pair of shoes is just a pair of shoes, but it's why you buy Nike over Adidas. A brand is how it makes you feel. It's why you buy certain clothes or wear certain things. It's your emotional connection to that brand is why you gravitate towards it. When you walk past Starbucks, you don't say, oh, there's a coffee shop. You say, there's Starbucks. Yeah. Starbucks is coffee. Yeah. It's like Big Yellow. It's like, they're an example. You don't walk past and go, oh, there's self-storage. Oh, there's Big Yellow.
Sorry to pitch another podcast, but The Diary of a CEO. Stephen Bartlett was interviewing, I've forgotten his name, but the coffee connoisseur. And he was saying about how you can have independence and you can have big brands. And the beauty about a big brand is that no matter where you go in the world, you sort of already know what you're going to get. Won't always be the best, but it's just consistent. But then if you can build a good local boutique brand, you can charge more. But because you can have closer attention to detail, customer experience also plays a massive part into like that brand value. For example, like I know a pair of jeans that I buy, and I don't buy any other jeans because I know they fit me and I know they're comfortable. So if that experience is good, you will just go back to that. And I think so much of self-storage for a long time has been governed about how to get people in. Whereas I think now that a lot more operators are concentrating on when the customers are in, is making sure they are getting a level of service and, the quality is there, that if they then leave and they then need to come back, they don't even think about going anywhere else. They will just always go back to where they've been before because they know what it is. Yeah. They know it met their expectations. Yeah. And they know they're going to leave happy again.
Yeah, definitely. We spoke about so much now. It's really good. Yeah, it's been really good. What would you say your top tips, top tricks to advise self-storage operators to grow?
So I'll put it in two camps because there's physical occupancy growth and then there's sort of like revenue. If you're in a lease up and you're trying to fill a place, utilize deals to get people through the door and generate that, and just really work on making sure people are aware. You can't really stimulate demand out of nowhere. So it's a case of look for the demand that there is, build partnerships locally, go and talk to estate agents. Had a build around the other day that was not the other day, it's a couple of years ago now, but to do some work in our house. And I knew that I was going to have to empty it out. And obviously I know storage, so I know what I can do with it. Suddenly made me realize that there was a prime captive audience there of somebody who's going to have to empty their living room and they've been talking to a builder. Why isn't a storage company got that builder have their leaflet in hand? So it's like, oh, you're going to have to move out. Here's a thing. So I'd say do partnerships. I think they can be amazing. In terms of building revenue, my thing would be don't be scared of existing customer rent increases. revenue management otherwise. If you're really close to the coal face of your business, you can build personal relationships with your customers. And that inevitably makes it harder to put a price increase through on someone. And so I think always have a measurable, consistent approach to moving your rates upwards. I think, the last sort of 18 months where we've had big pressures in terms of cost of living, but inflation, etc. We have it with clients where we'll have a conversation and they feel like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be putting prices up. Well, we should only do that if we've lost all the demand coming in. Because if someone's still coming in and wanting to rent a storage unit off you, if you've got someone who's paying less than them, you're doing that customer out of a storage room. Yes, you're doing yourself out of money. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, you just have to keep doing it bit by bit, working on it that way. I don't know whether I've actually answered that question particularly well or not.
You did. Have you noticed any trends or shifts in the industry recently?
I mean, I've seen, obviously, I started in 2006, I think was the beginning. I've seen a lot shift since then. Mainly it was like moving online. I'd say the current shift we're going through is a big growth in terms of people coming in. I think the supply is increasing a lot and will carry on to increase substantially over 5 years. COVID highlighted to the world again how amazing self-storage is as a sector. We actually accelerated and were one of very, very few industries that did. Mm-hmm. So I think that has massively blown up like the awareness of our industry and therefore people coming in. Mm-hmm. Before that, obviously you had the automation of the likes of keypads and this and the other. That's taken another step forward in terms of automated locks, electronic locks. Yes, Janus and Nokia were the first, but you've got Bearbox are doing one, PTI have brought something out. And there are other companies sort of in the wings looking to do stuff there. Following on from that, once you've nailed automation, it's then getting that stuff to happen without you having to put the effort in. And that's where AI plays a part. It's fascinating where that could go. I do think there's a risk of people going down the AI route just because they can. Scrape data, compile it, put it into reports, etc. Like for me, that's where I see the most value. Is AI going to be vital for the customer front end of storage? Personally, I say no. 5 years' time, I might be proved completely wrong. But I think at the end of the day, if you go too far down that way, we lose the other bit, which is the service angle. Yeah. It might suit a certain sort of business model. I don't know. It's not a way I'd like to see the industry go. But there is a lot to come from that. And we know that, storage software companies are looking at it and bringing out tools. Yeah, an interesting space.
I'm always for full automation of a site, being able to go online, book and moving without seeing someone. But from doing these podcasts, the theme has from a lot of operators and suppliers who are in the industry as well, how many people still want to pick up the phone and speak to someone and just have that touch point where they know there's actually going to be someone physically looking after their stuff, even though they're kind of not, but they know someone's actually looking after the site.
Product versus service, right? When you're buying a product, as you say, you can be completely automated on that, go onto Amazon, buy it, whatever. You don't need anyone. The people who do want to act like that, you've got to make sure they can. Because you're looking after people's personal or business belongings, there is a trust that you're selling. And I think that's very hard to sell on a fully automated basis. And equally, fundamentally, as automated as a site is, it's not like there's no people involved. You've still got people checking rooms. You've got people looking at the CCTV. Yeah, maintaining the ability to sell that trust is massive. As an industry, we're still young. As I said, only 55% of people even know what storage is. There's a huge number of people who have no idea. Once that awareness gets much, much better, I think people will be happy with it once they know what they're going to get, and so therefore can see it online and be comfortable that they're making the right decision online. Yeah, then I think they're good.
I think we've covered a lot there. Yeah. probably our longest podcast today, I'm going to say. But no, that was really good. Some really good insights there for all different kinds of people who are looking to get into it, people who are already established. There's a lot there I think people can listen to and take away, which is really great. I think it's going to resonate well with the people who are coming to speak to us about containers. So thanks for your insights there.
Thank you. No, great. I've really enjoyed it.
Chatterbox was brought to you by Cleveland Containers, the UK's leading supplier of new and used shipping containers and the largest supplier to the container self-storage market. If you're looking to enter the self-storage industry or streamline and expand your current site, talk to us about Box Plus, our one-stop service that can provide you with everything you need to set up and run a simple, remotely operated and profitable self-storage business. For more information, head to clevelandcontainers.co.uk and follow us on social media for more content on all things shipping containers and self-storage.